Hello, I'm Eric Houston, and welcome to In Focus. Tonight we're focusing in on Mark Johnson, a new producer who's found success here on NMTV and worldwide via the internet. After years of research and study, historian Mark Johnson uncovered the secrets of the mysterious Kensington Runestone. He recently produced a program revealing these secrets, airing it both on our own Channel 14 and on the internet site YouTube. Let's take a look at the log of the Kensington Runestone.
Like any good runic mystery, there has to be a lock, something which must be opened before you can enter. This is it. This symbol does not appear anywhere else in the runic world. It is one of those shading aspects that makes us want to suspect the stone of being a fraud. I went through all the scholars' texts, and having found nothing that related to it, I was ready to give up. Then I remembered the quote from A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I quote, "How often have I said to you that when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth," unquote. What was left was Futhark runic. So I asked myself, does it at all resemble any of the runes here? There is Anzu's, the rune for signals, but that has the two sidebars at one end of the vertical bar, not in the middle. Then there was Fihu, the rune for possessions, but the sidebars on our mystery rune were on the opposite side and dropped down to a horizontal position. I grew up in a farmhouse that was built before electricity, and in the kitchen it had a wood-burning stove. Also there was a flour bin. This flour bin was a pine board affair with a beeswax coating on the inside. When you opened the bin, it dropped down. The mystery rune made me think of this function. Could be the rune Fihu reversed, allowing the author to express gain or loss of possessions. On a commercial venture, this would be important information to relate about your results. So I made what is known in research circles as a S.W.A.G, scientific wild-ass guess.
Okay, and thanks for joining us, Mark.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here tonight.
Good. How you doing?
Very good.
Good. So now your show, Log of the Kensington Runestone, is obviously it's about history and discovery and things like that. So I'm wondering, can you tell us a little bit about your background as a historian? How did you get interested in that?
History's always been a hobby of mine, and it started with the phrase from General Santiago, and it goes, "Those who fail to learn from their history are condemned to repeat it."
Yeah.
And of course, the U.S. is going through that today.
Perhaps. So you got interested in history and the runestone in specific.
It was partly spiritual.
Okay.
And it was something of a whim led me to go up to Alexandria, Minnesota to look at this rune because I knew it was one of the largest runic displays in North America.
Okay.
So I went up there and got a look at it and picked up some literature about it. Mm-hmm. And as I read what's known as the front message, or what I call the front message, it basically states that there was a bloody battle, a number of people were killed, and it didn't look good for them.
Okay.
And there's something about that, though, to the child inside of me that didn't ring true. Okay. And as I looked at this runestone, it was like there's a lot of writing there. Somebody had something to say, and they were out in the middle of nowhere at the time, so it must have been important. And I didn't think it was what Helmer Holland, the original investigator, had found reading it.
Okay. If I can stop you for just a second, Mark, let's real quick for our viewers at home who might not know what exactly is the Kensington Runestone.
It is known as a Viking Age artifact.
Okay.
And it looks like this model.
Okay.
And it was found by a farmer, a Norwegian farmer, while he was pulling a tree stump out of his field to clear it. He was a pioneer up there.
Okay.
And it was rather peculiar because it sat as a step into his grain mill for almost 15 years. Then this one professor, Helmer Holland, heard about it, mm-hmm. and he went up to look at it. Mm-hmm. And he got very interested in it, ended up spending almost 30 years of research mm-hmm. on it and the background around it.
Okay.
And it eventually got to be known by the University of Minnesota, and then the knowledge of it grew from there. Okay. The latest official word on it is from the Smithsonian Institute, and they don't believe it's real.
Okay, they think it's a hoax.
Yes.
Okay.
Go
ahead.
Because of anomalies in the runes upon it, and when you translate them into Norwegian alphabet, Even Helmer Holland admits himself he had to ignore and guess at certain other runes to come up with the message that he came up with. So there's a lot of shading about it.
Okay. So it's a stone that some guy just dug up, didn't know what it was. Years later, they translated it. But you don't think the translation is right, or at least not the whole story.
No, I think Helmer saw what he saw,
Yeah.
but I believe that the front message, as I call it, is politically correct statement to cover what actually happened.
Okay. Now, what do you mean by a front message?
Well, underneath that is a ideogram
Okay.
interpretation of the stone, and it's a very similar story. People died. There was a lot of violence, but a lot more detail. It's 64 days of log entries telling about the incidences that led up to the time of carving of the stone.
So it's like there's a second story carved into the stone underneath the original letters.
You might say
In
that,
a
but
way.
it's a matter of whether you use it in the ancient way as an
Yeah.
ideogram or the more common European way as an alphabet translation.
Okay, so if you use it, so when you say alphabet translation, so like what we have, you know,
Yes.
letters and things, and by ideogram you mean something like hieroglyphics?
Yes,
Okay.
very much like hieroglyphs or Chinese writing.
Okay.
As the Vikings came into contact with European societies, they began to formulate the runes and express them as letters.
Okay.
Because the European societies, I don't know, you might say socially pressured them. But way before that, for centuries before that, it was used as an ideogram expression to communicate.
Okay.
The other thing, at that time it was considered magic to be able to write your thoughts on an object, send it through forests, across rivers, over mountains, and have someone else look at it and understand what you were thinking. To those who could not read, this seemed like spiritual talk.
Yeah.
And that's always been interwoven into the history of runes.
Sure. But what you were able to see when you looked at the stone was you saw that other way of reading it.
Yeah, and it was really peculiar. It was first this hunch that I wasn't getting the true story, just a feeling. A lot of us feel that way today about our politicians. But as I looked at it, I thought, well, there's something else there. And I went down to the library and got out about 12 books on runic. And so I'm at home with a copy of the inscription. And that's when I realized that all these scholars in these books identified each rune as being an ideogram expression, with between a minimum of 3 words assigned to each rune up to the largest list of 13 words.
Okay.
And as I went through the book, at first I would take the one rune and I'd go through every book, but that was lengthy. So then I hit on the virtues of laziness, which a calculus teacher taught me. And I thought, well, let's just write these Futhark runes down on a piece of paper, and then let's write the words that each scholar says it means underneath that, so I wouldn't have to read each book as I was trying to read the story, right? Saving
and
time.
when you say Futhark, that's a dialect, is that right?
Oh, Futhark is the name they give to this particular set of runes.
Okay.
Because they don't really know what to call it. It's so ancient.
Okay.
But Futhark is the first, I want to say, 6 letters of the alphabet it forms.
Okay.
Futhark. And that's what it came to be known.
Oh, okay.
And it always has been known as that today. I should point out, though, if you look at European history, runic occurs all over Europe and the Mediterranean, and in different, I would say, dialects. You'll see different symbols appear in different parts. Like if you go down the island of Crete, it appears one way. It's even in Egyptian hieroglyphics you can find runic symbols. And then if you go up into central France, it appears another way, Russia another way, and then as you get up into the Scandinavian countries, there is a Swedish and even a Goth form, or a Norwegian and I should say in a Swedish form that appear.
So so you created your dictionary, you figured out what these runes most likely meant.
Yes.
Translated the story, and you said that it's fairly similar to what historians had already found, but different.
It supports Helmer Holland's supposition that this was a group of Norwegians who had hired a number of people in Vinland to lead him or guide him and provide the boats he used to get to central Minnesota. So it might have been a case of hiring porters and shipwrights and so forth. Helmer, in one of his publications, states that he also brought 8 rune masters from the Scandinavian countries with him.
Yeah.
So we know they were along.
Okay.
And I've just found that out recently by talking to the world with this story.
Okay, excellent. And that's something that you've done. Now that you have completed your translation of it, and you're ready to share it with the world, and you've done that.
Yes.
You did the show here.
Yes.
You've put it online. And next thing I want to talk to you about is how you took this discovery and used television to share it with the world. But first, I'd like to take a look at a quick clip from the show.
Okay.
All right, let's take a look.
Day 5. The first rune in the last set of line 1 is ride-ho, meaning journey. It is followed by the sign of the cross, meaning Christians. Next appears the rune Terra, meaning warriors. Then another non-Futhek rune, Odin's battle. In early runic, Odin was the god of wisdom, and Odin's battle meant a battle with oneself over an internal conflict. In Roman times, it came to stand for physical battle, and Roman records tell us that the northern barbarians would make human sacrifice to this god. That is how it is used in this inscription. Next in the set is Elhes, but it has been modified. It has been used to convey earthly defense, not spiritual, and the right-hand arm is missing or broken away. Herrick is saying it was an unsuccessful defense or defeat. Lastly appears a non-Futhek rune, which stands for the number 8. The last statement of line 1 says, on the journey, the Christian warriors decide to give battle, but are defeated and lose 8. The Christians decide to fight. However, they lose big with 8 out of 23 fighters dead.
What is North Metro TV Public Access? It's documentaries.
We didn't decide to have 8. We decided to have one at a time.
It's faith.
Miracles, ministries, music, evangelistic.
It's short films. It's weird.
Then we were on opposite sides in a toothpaste test. My side used
North Metro TV. It's a community of amateur TV producers working together to make the kind of TV shows they want, taking free television production classes and gaining hands-on experience with our professional studios and equipment right here in Blaine. Get started by calling 763-231-2803 or visit northmetrotv.com. So, what is it? You tell us. North Metro TV Public Access.
North Metro 14 is our channel. At North Metro TV, students at Centennial, Blaine, and Spring Lake Park High Schools can sign up for free classes in studio production, professional cameras, and computer editing.
It's everything we need to make our own TV shows and put them on Channel 14.
And best of all, it's totally free.
Get started by calling 763-231-2803 or by visiting northmetrotv.com.
Okay, welcome back to In Focus. I'm Eric Houston. I'm here with Mark Johnson, one of our public access producers who produced the log of the Kensington Runestone. Now, before we took a break, we talked about how you found out about the Kensington Runestone and how you came up with your new translation of it. Now, when it came time to share that with the world, why TV?
I wanted to reach out to a wide audience, and I knew that this subject had global interest. Mm-hmm. And I thought the best way to describe what I'd found, which was almost more difficult than the finding, was to visually show what I had found. Mm-hmm. Runic, after all, is a very visual experience.
Right.
And it seemed the best way to do that is if I could get up in front of an audience and tell them. Mm-hmm. And it's worked out rather well for me that way.
Good. And so then why come to North Metro TV and not another place?
It's the darndest thing. I watched your television show. Mm-hmm. And the reason I watched North Metro TV, it was it got back to the roots of television as a community event. I would see normal people talking mm-hmm. about everyday life things, mm-hmm. and it wasn't all the hype that media mm-hmm. television gives us, and not all the propaganda you're forced. It was just, what are people saying, what are they thinking? That really intrigued me, and I thought, this is where I want to go with this story. I want to tell people about mm-hmm. it.
Well, and the other thing, too, that I know that was important to you was coming here meant you had control over what you wanted to say.
Yeah, in my history of television production, you know, in the media world, when you go in to make a show, you have to satisfy the sponsors, you have to satisfy the censors, and there's other things that can affect the content of the show. None of those restrictions were there for me. It was wide open as to what I had to say. And of course, what I had to say was rather controversial. It's going to end up turning the history world a little bit upside down.
Which is exciting.
Yes, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, outside of the fact that it's an epic story.
Yes.
You know, especially in a time when things like Lord of the Rings and now Game of Thrones are so popular, to have a Viking epic, a new one, on TV is exciting enough, but also that air of controversy really makes it stand out, I think.
Also, if you read the saga that it's there, it is what I describe, and it's true when I say it, it's a bloody tale of Christianity served out on the edge of a sword. But what's more astonishing is also the tale of a pagan bearing witness to miracles received by the Christian leader during all this. And I believe at the end, we see that this pagan, Herrick, has actually been converted through the miracles he's seen.
There you go.
Yeah, so it's Faustian in nature, you might say.
That's a heck of a story.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, beyond Beowulf in some regards.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know that when it came time to do the show, you wanted to be front and center on screen so you could present it, because who else could?
Yeah.
You know? And so that I know that meant that you needed to get a crew together.
Yes.
So who was it? So who helped you? Who were the guys that helped you?
Well, at North Metro, we have a mechanism called Crew Call. And I had a friend lined up to do my editing, but business requirements didn't allow him to participate. So you put it out on Crew Call, and I ended up meeting two of your producers, Mike Bouchard and Rob Clark. And they scheduled an evening, and I came in, and Mike ran the sound booth, and Rob maintained the cameras on the setup for me, and also acted as floor director. And using them as volunteers, I was able to make this show.
And then Rob, I know, helped you a lot with the editing.
Oh, yes.
After the fact. So what did working with them bring to the project that wouldn't have been there otherwise? What did that collaboration allow?
Well, I needed someone in the sound booth. It's a necessary position.
Well, sure.
And then I needed someone on cameras, but most importantly, I needed someone who could edit it afterwards. Making these shows, you know, as we sit here now, we're capturing voice and images on film, but the show really doesn't come to life until the edit room.
Yeah.
And I can tell you now, there's about 12 or 15 minutes of what we shot that ended up on the cutting room floor, which is very normal, and actually it's surprising not more of it did.
Yeah. And I know that in the editing that, you know, the studio shoot was, you know, kind of you on stage telling the story and relating the saga and how you found it, as well as the story itself. What did you add into editing to make it more visual?
Well, I came into his edit sessions more or less as a historical advisor, that he got the right parts of it in there as he edited. It was Rob Clark, though, that said, you know, it's wonderful stuff, but it's kind of heady, you know, it's kind of deep. And if we just talked about it, people would be nodding off. And he said, he turned to me and he says, you're going to need pictures. You're going to need lots of pictures, he said. And he proceeded to collect pictures, and then I went to friends of mine who had technical abilities and pulled in images that we could introduce into the show to help express the story visually, what was going on.
And not just tell the story, but also show the viewers the runes themselves.
Yes.
Kind of make them come alive off of the page so they can see how the story is actually written.
Yeah, they had a wonderful technique. I gave them my, like for instance, my dictionary and then a copy of the rune message. And they went out and with graphics, they highlighted sections of it, and it was like dancing. We coordinated that. What I talked about, they highlighted at the right times and the right sequence, so that if you see the show, you see the story come to life in front of you.
Yeah. Well, and it's like I said, it's great stuff, and I know that it's been very popular on the station, but I know that it's also been popular on YouTube.
Yes, one of the things you did for me is you showed me how to put it on YouTube, and now it's being seen in Brazil, Egypt, Germany, Great Britain, Sweden, Norway, Canada, and the U.S. Oh, and the latest country to ring in was Australia.
Australia.
Yeah, so it's globally out there, and I'm getting emails.
Yeah.
And a lot of information has come in about runic in general and the stone. which is in some ways is changing the story.
Yeah.
The report that I've written. For instance, I now know that the Chippewa Nation was further east, no, actually north, up near the Hudson Bay, at the time the Vikings were in Minnesota.
Okay.
And it was only the incursion of the white settlers that drove them to a land battle with the Yankton Sioux, which gives us the map you see in my story.
Okay.
So there's some minor corrections, but the saga itself remains the same. It does not change because of these.
But beyond just bringing the story to global eyes, which it really has, I looked at your YouTube the other day, you have a couple of hundred people have watched it there now.
I'm up around 350 over 90 days.
350 over 90 days, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's no advertised, word of mouth.
Right, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it's clear, you know, people are clearly loving it, but what I love hearing is that it's become interactive, that it's, you know, that people are sharing information now because of this.
It's pretty amazing, and things that have just come to light in the last couple of weeks. It was about a week and a half ago I got an inscription from Norway. And the inscription uses the same runes as are on the Kensington Runestone. And in particular, the one I call Fihu Reversed appears on this inscription from Norway. Now, the inscription in Minnesota was made in 1362. The inscription that was shown to me from Norway was made in 1907. So we're talking about two inscriptions 545 years apart that have the same mysterious rune appearing
Interesting.
on it. So it's raising a lot of eyes and questions about, oh, what's this, you know, what's this about? No.
And certainly questions that never would have been asked if you hadn't been able to get it out there.
And also, just in the last week, there was a Canadian historian weighed in, and he tells me that it's time to quit trying to discover about the runes in America and start to assail our history teachers that we don't put this in a history book.
Yeah.
He showed me information that virtually proves there was a massive trade route that ran from Hudson Bay down to the Gulf of Mexico, and it was known by the Vikings as the copper trade route.
Yeah.
And he can show me maps of mooring stones and places where there were actually ports where these ships put in and came out of as they went up and down this trading route. Also, we have ruins in Oklahoma and Kansas that are stories I have not yet translated.
Yeah.
Though the Oklahoma ruins appear to be an advertising, one that I looked at was an advertising sign that basically says, come here to trade with so-and-so. So, you know, this information, my ideogram expressions, as I look at it, it falls right in line with this historic information, and they corroborate each other, which is really exciting for me.
Right. That's great. And I mean, and I know that there's still more to come. You showed me an article that you're working on.
Yes.
For what's the name of the magazine?
It was Temerity Magazine, and they saw my YouTube. They saw my YouTube posting, and they approached me and asked me if I would write an article for them. And it's an online magazine for relic and treasure hunters.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun to write it. And I point out to them that while it's an ancient information I bring out, and so far I've talked about the Kensington Runestone, but this is really just the beginning of the event, because there are rune messages out there all over with saga stories.
You were really able to use the station to get the message out there.
Yes.
And it seems like it's been a tremendous success.
So far, it's rolling right along. It's becoming a little juggernaut for me. And I have like people from all over the world sending me emails. I'm getting about 13 emails a day now with back and forth discussion.
Excellent.
And some of them are very critical. And I put a message out there as they talk to me. I says, can anyone supply me with a topographical map of America in 1362? My thought that with all the computer programs we have now, somebody would be able to reproduce that.
Yeah.
Well, here they come back with actual maps of the period. And with a lot of information about Viking exploration in North America that is documented.
Yeah.
It's just that it's not in the mainstream of history, and it's nowhere in the American history books.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So just the amount of the exchange of ideas that's happened so far and that's yet to come, I'm very impressed.
It's blowing me away.
Well, me too.
What's happening?
But we're out of time today. Thanks so much for joining us and telling us about not only the stone, but your time here at the station and making the show. And let's take one more look at Log of the Kensington Runestone.
You might want to get something to wipe up all the blood that's about to start pouring out of this story. A cold, wet towel is best.
Line 3 begins with day 9. They stand still in earthly defense. The people they are with must defend themselves from something earthly, wildlife or man. I'd like to point out that within these two Native American nations, there was tribal dispute and conflict. A raid from a competing tribe within the nation would have been possible. The Vikings in their dragon canoe would have been a big catch. It would be like owning your very own cruise missile battery. The next statement, day 10, starts with Terra, meaning warrior, followed by Sovelo, meaning hole or thunderbolt. Then appears Christians, and lastly, earthly defense. It says the warriors are whole or sudden like a thunderbolt in Christian or Christians' earthly defense. There was a fight, and the Christians came off looking good. To these men, long trained in the arts of war, anything could become a weapon.
I'd like to thank Mark once again for joining us on In Focus. I'd also like to thank my wonderful crew, who, as always, was made up of students taking our free, monthly How to Make a TV Show class. If you'd like to sign up for that or any of our other free classes, you can call 763-231-2803 or email eric@northmetrotv.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next month on In Focus.